Welcome to I Think 313. It's your man Satoshi Nakamoto. I'm your host. Here today I got my two alter egos with me. Lil Tweaker. Good to be here. Thank you. And Umar Abdur-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It's definitely a good occasion. Today we're having a little dialogue about the code of the streets, the infamous and notorious code of silence, the snitch code. We're having a little dialogue about it, and we're just kind of talking about, is it helpful in today's community? Is it properly understood and practiced the way it was intended to be? And where did it kind of come from? So, weigh in on that. Let the big fellas weigh in on that. We're going to discuss a little of those things today. For those of you out there who might not know what the code of the streets is, the code of the streets is officially some unwritten rules that was passed down from generation to generation on how a person involved in crime, criminal, or illegal activities must conduct themselves within that underworld. There's not really a person or a place to enforce these rules. It's just kind of generally accepted by the people who engage in the underworld and engage in those type of activities, and they kind of check themselves. So maybe you're in a gang or a culture or something like that, and somebody may hold you accountable for violating these rules, or sometimes it's just the understanding that, okay, dude, don't play by the rules of the streets, we're not gonna deal with them, yada 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 yada. But it's no official authority, quote unquote, that kind of enforces these rules. So it's a loose knit set of rules, unwritten rules that people abide by when they're engaging in certain type of activities. From my understanding, these rules were initially the unwritten rules of the African American slave when they was going through our ancestors was going through the whole slavery thing, being stolen from Africa and brought over here and working plantations and things like that for 400 years. So these rules were kind of incorporated into their everyday life with the understanding that they were slaves, they were stolen from their land, their homeland, brought to another land to work for free under terrible and brutal conditions. So they understood that they were people who were oppressed. They knew who their oppressor was, and they had these rules in place to kind of insulate themselves and protect themselves from the oppression of the oppressor, with the hope of eventually rising up and overthrowing the oppressor. So these rules became the everyday code of conduct throughout the years of slavery and the plantation life. All the slaves had an understanding that they did not want master knowing any of their business aside from what was absolutely necessary for master to know. Meaning, the slaves wasn't telling master nothing because they understood that any information that master had about the slaves, about their mentality, about what they were going through, about whatever was going on in their lives, master would use it to hurt them. He would use it against them. For instance, just one prime example, if a male slave was in love with a female slave, this was something that the slaves wouldn't initially let master be privy of, because he would use that love and that relationship to punish those slaves if one of them got out of line, or if one of them wasn't doing the job the way he expected the job to be done. Maybe he would threaten to sell the other slave, the one that person was in love with, or maybe he would harm that person or anything of that nature. So the slaves were just constantly in the habit of saying as less to master as possible. They was not giving up any rap. They didn't have no rap for master, and they taught that to their children, and it was passed down from generation to generation to generation up until the present day. But somewhere along the line, criminals hijacked this this code of silence and incorporate it into the African American criminal structure. Now you have other families, mafia, Italian mafia, Mexican mafia. They also have their own little codes of silences, and it's kind of primarily for the same reason: their family, their organization, and they use this code of silence to protect themselves from outside harm and things of that nature. So these rules was passed down from the African American slaves all the way down to the present day generations. And with time, some of the understanding eroded. So that's why we're having this conversation today. So little tweaker, I'm going to turn to you and ask you, how do you think these rules and this slavery, can you just elaborate on a little bit of what we were talking about just now? Yeah, I think to a certain degree, you're right. Because our ancestors knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, any information shared by them, the master, will ultimately result in furthering or strengthening the oppression that they were suffering at that time. So no, absolutely not. They did not share information about anything with their masters, except what was absolutely necessary, as they were mindful of the fact that whatever they say could and would be used against them. Sounds familiar? Yeah, that's what the police say. You have the right to remain silent. True, whatever you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So better than anybody, the slaves understood that. So they 9 times out of 10 chose their words carefully and choose to remain silent in the presence of master at all times. And on the plantation, it was more of a us against them mentality. The slaves understood that the master was the enemy. So they served their masters in silence, and they taught their children and offspring to do the same. And this mentality was passed down through the generations up until the relatively recent years. So they understood that there was certain things that they could not do around master. It was definitely a lot of things that they could not say around the master. So, and most of the time when they were dealing with master, they just didn't say too much at all. Everything was short. It was a barrier and, passive resistance, so to speak. If master asked them a question, obviously, if it wasn't something that was going to incriminate other slaves or things of like that nature, they would try to answer. But even with that, they'd give the least answer as possible. If master asked them to do a task, they would do it, but they would take their time doing it, because they know that as soon as they finish that task, master would be coming with another task. So they were always in the mind of, not finishing tasks too quickly, not saying more than what absolutely necessary needed to be said, and things of that nature. Abdur-Rahim, would you like to weigh in on this one? Yes, and thank you. I would say that master met with so much silence and passive resistance from his slaves that he had to come up with some type of way to get better cooperation, facts, from them, and a way to engage with them more, so that he could at least be informed about the sentiments and the overall emotion of what's going on the plantation, in the hearts and the minds of the slaves and everybody that's working the plantation. So he incorporated the habit of impregnating some of his slaves, and taking that offspring and raising that offspring in the house closer to himself, so he could have that type of relationship, where he could get some information when he needed some information, or he could trick them out of some information, manipulate them out of some information, or things like that, or just have a understanding with that slave middle class, so to speak, where they felt comfortable enough to, or protected enough by him to divulge information that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have divulged to him. That's a good point. So you saying that the slave master kind of created a middle class made up of mulatto offspring of the slave and the master. So master let his half-slave offspring work inside the house. He treated them better and gave them small but special privileges that in time served to kind of soften their hearts towards him. And that's a whole nother show. We're going to get back to that. Yeah, we're going to have to do another episode. That one coming up, so lock in. And in return, he often received a lot of valuable information. Because you know what people do when they get comfortable around you, they talk. They let their guards down. They tell you how they feeling. You know how it is. They tell you what went on last night. You know, how was your day? Oh, it went this way, it went that way, you know. Boom. That's how it go. You know how it is, man, you know. You be around a person long enough, you know, people tend to let their guards down. You start to hear things. They start to say more. Things like that. So that's what Master did with his offspring, with his half-slave offspring. He let them into the house. He let them do chores inside the house, hoping that they would let their guards down or let something slip about what was going on in the fields or anything like that, or hoping he can even ask them directly. For sure. You know what I mean? A lot of times, I don't know if you have any police friends or anything like that, or family members that work in law enforcement or things like that, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times, they kind of know not to ask you no information about what's going on in the hood, you know what I'm saying? About who is such and such a person, this, that, and the third. But, you know, if they're family and they come around enough and you chilling with them, you know, they might try you. Yo, bro, ask you something direct. Like, yo, bro, you know what happened with that? Who did that shooting? You know what I'm saying? Over there on the other block. Like, you gonna say something. Sometimes, you know, you might be like, oh, cuz, depending on how well you know your cousin or your relative that's in law enforcement, you might be like, yeah, bro, that was such and such a number. You might not say nothing. You might be like, cut out, man. You know I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We cool, but we ain't that cool. It ain't that type of party. So that's what Master had going on with the slaves that he fathered and let work inside the home. Ah, I see. So these middle-class citizens were half black, half white. They would kind of bring information about the slaves into the master's house to Master, and they would kind of bring information out from the master house into the slave quarters about Master. You know what I mean? So they were kind of working both ends of the fence. You know, as you can probably imagine, they're in the house with Master, they're doing dishes, they're cleaning laundry, they're cleaning floors and stuff like that, and they're probably just talking amongst each other. You know, we see these type of things even in prison. It might be a fight on the unit or something like that, you know what I mean, going down. So the guys who work in the kitchen, once we get off lockdown, once everybody get off lockdown or anything, the guys who maybe they work in the kitchen, they work in the laundry room or something like that, they report to work, they're doing their jobs, and they're just shooting the breeze while they're doing their job. Yo, what happened with that fight last night? Yo, man, such got into it over the TV, so they're talking. It's COs there, it's food stewards there, it's laundry workers who citizens, not prisoners. I'm talking about private citizens who work at the facility. They're there and they're hearing this conversation. So it's kind of like inadvertently informing these people, even though they're not doing it, the inmates are not doing it intentionally. They're just having a conversation, trying to fill each other in on what happened the night before. Yeah, it was a fight on my unit, bro. Such and such got into it with such. It started in the TV room. It was about the TV, this, that, and the other. You know, unbeknownst to them, they're just casually kicking and shooting the breeze doing their job, but the food steward or the laundry steward that's a private citizen and not an inmate is hearing all of this. Now, what they choose to do with that information, that's on them. I'm just giving you an example of how this could have been working the same way with the house niggas in Master's house. They're doing their job, and they're just kind of telling what's going on in the slave quarters and in the field, just having a conversation. Inadvertently, nuggets of information are being dropped, and in a lot of cases, it could be useful information. So we can kind of picture what's going on with that. And in the same token, when they arrive back, when they arrive back to the slave quarters, they would be talking about what's going on, what went on in the house. So, you know, information was being changed and given both ways, exchanged and given both ways. Yeah, that's what the Master done to penetrate the barriers of silence and uncooperative behaviors that he was encountering from the slaves, which they had erected for that purpose, to kind of keep him out of their business, to keep him from being able to gather information that he could use against them to further oppress them. So since these mulattoes or these mixed offspring worked in the house and they were given special small privileges and things like that, treats and things like that, because they did work in the house, you know what I mean? And they were eventually called house niggas. So this became a type of middle class thing. This was like the first form of African American middle class. If you worked in a house, and normally these people were offspring, like you said, these people were offspring of the master and a slave. So the master would sleep with a slave, impregnate that slave, get her pregnant, then raise the child, give the child a job in the house. The child still lived in the slave quarters, but they would give him a job in the house and raise him up, give him preferential treatment, give him little treats and stuff like that, and kind of encourage the house nigga to be unguarded around master. You know, kind of like I said, what you would see in prison, where a person who works in the kitchen, he's working side by side with the food steward. The food steward can be a woman, a free woman from the street. She come in to do 8 hours every day in the kitchen. She's working around inmates, men who haven't been around a woman in 10, 20, maybe 30 years or so. So it's only natural that at some point, by working side by side, it's going to be some unguarded moments. You know, the inmate's gonna be unguarded with her, and she's gonna be unguarded with the inmate, you know, and she might say some things about her personal life that she shouldn't have said. You know, it could be anything. You know, they're not supposed to say anything about their personal life, but it happens. Same thing with the inmate. He might say some things about what's going on inside the prison that shouldn't have been said. Yeah, such got stabbed on the yard the other day. That was dude who got stabbed. You know what I'm saying? That shouldn't have been said, but it happens, you know. And food stewards, male, female, whatever they may be, they're free citizens. So, you know, and they're working with inmates, and the relationship is supposed to be a certain type of relationship, not get too close to the inmates not to get too close to the COs and the food stewards. But when you're living together and you're working together side by side, day in and day out, the lines tend to get blurred, and we see it. You know, women get pregnant by inmates. You know, male COs bring in drugs and cell phones to inmates. Some of them get into gangs. They get gang tattoos. They see COs, but you know, they're working in the gang, in a joint, and the bloods run the joint, and they end up being bloods and taking that mentality home with them. So, you know, we're seeing this in slavery as well, when we're talking about this code of silence and the snitch code and house niggas and field niggas and things of that nature. So what Master did was to kind of break down the barriers that he was having between the slaves and himself, with them being silent and not really being forthcoming with information and things like that, not really having a good way to understand what's going on in the hearts and the minds of his slaves. Came up with an idea. Said, you know what you need to do? I need to be able to soften some of these slaves up, so the disposition towards me won't be so harsh and so hard. You know, I need to be able to make it where they have some type of affection for me, but still have some respect and fear for me. So what he did was he started sleeping with the female slaves and having children by them. And those children, he would bring it to his house and give them jobs in his house and kind of treat them like a stepson or something like that, to that nature. Don't treat them too good, but don't treat them like you treat the rest of the slaves. Just give them a little bit of preferential treatment, and hopefully with time, that child being raised up, working in the house every day, 5, 6, 7 years, by the time the child's 10, 11, or 12, he's loose. He comes to work, does his job. Hey, master, how you doing? Hey, how you doing, boy? Call him his son, call him whatever, you know, give him a treat. Ooh, how was your day yesterday when you left work? How did the evening go? Well, such and such, this happened, that happened, boom, 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 boom. They're loosely kicking and exchanging information. So that's how it went, and this became like the middle class. This was considered a middle class citizen on the plantation. A house nigga, you know what I mean? So he got preferential treatment, one step above the field nigga, and it kind of created some affection in the hearts of the house niggas towards master, and it kind of created some animosity in the house of the field nigga towards the house nigga. So we're starting to see a little breakdown in the strength and the structure of the slave class. But at night, those slaves would return to, the slave quarters. In the day they worked in the house, at night they would return to the slave quarters. And that was important because master, his only reason for letting the slave in the house was so that he could do two things. For one, he could send the slaves back to the slave quarters with some extras, some treats, something, a toy or anything to just kind of make that slave earn some type of envy from the other slaves, That way they would want that position. Like, yo, man, that house position looking kind of sweet. This nigga showing up with chocolate chip cookies at night. You know what I'm saying? He got toys or whatever the case may be. And also, that was one purpose. And the other purpose was so that the house nigga can go back to the field, be amongst the field niggas in the slave quarters and gather information and return to work the next day with that information. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Master was smart. With time, the field niggas began to understand that the house niggas were snitches in most cases. Because most of them were only kids. And kids talk. You know what I mean? Kids talk. They say what they hear. They say what they see. And Master understood this. So, the house niggas would in a lot of cases be kids. And, kids gonna come in and they're gonna talk. And they're not gonna have a problem with answering questions and things like that. So, Master, he used that tactic. He used those kids for that reason. And he made them his house niggas and things like that. But the slaves, they were smart as well. So they definitely impressed upon their children that never, by no means, you tell anybody, especially not Master, what goes on inside our homes or what goes on inside the field. So, it was still a tug of war there, but Master kind of had a one-up on them by being able to get these kids in his home and give them preferential treatment and treats and things like that to soften them up and loosen up their tongues. Facts. Which brings me to my next question. Everybody is talking about don't talk to the authorities about nothing. Don't say nothing to the police about anything. But I mean, is there ever a situation where it's cool to talk to the authorities? Where it's okay to snitch? Is there ever a situation where it's okay to snitch? Because if I'm a kid and I'm listening to this music and I want to be cool and I'm thinking I can't tell the police anything about anything. But what if there's a shootout between two rival gangs and an innocent little kid gets killed or something? Can I then go to the police as a child, as a kid, as a youngster, as a minor? Can I then go to the police with some helpful information? Would that be okay? Good point. I mean, even for a gang member, if they had information about a shooting, let's just say they had information about an innocent bystander who was killed in a drive-by shooting that one of their own gang members was involved in. He was the shooter. Would it be cool to hand that person over to the authorities? Is that a cool thing to do? And to supply information to help convict that person. So if I'm a gang member and I know that some guys in my gang, they did a drive-by on a rival gang. And in the midst of that drive-by, they shot and killed a 7-year-old, 8-year-old little girl. Can I, as a gang member, call the police and say, I know who did that, and I want to help you hold this person accountable? I'm going to supply information for that. Is that cool? From a community standpoint, that absolutely would be the coolest thing to do because you just got somebody off the streets who needed to be off the streets. They out here having a shootout, unmindful of the children that's playing and they kill an innocent kid. They done kill somebody's child. People got things invested, love, time, pain, sacrifice invested in their loved ones, and then somebody get killed innocently and don't nobody want to come forward and say such and such did that, he should be held accountable for that. Nah, that ain't what men do. Men gonna hold men accountable. And you need that accountability in every community. So yeah, That would totally be a cool thing to do, but in today's society, like I said, it's frowned upon. There has to be some type of accountability within every community. People have to be held accountable for the wrong that they do. Honestly, we all know that'll be the right thing to do. We all know that. But in today's world, it's not so clear no more. It's not so clear anymore because, like I say, the culture been hijacked. So, these kids don't even understand the code of silence and how it's supposed to be used properly and effectively. Right now, the code of silence is used to protect the undesirables in the community. It's used to protect the killers, the rapers, the drug dealers, the people bringing all this harm and destruction to the community. The code of silence is used now to protect them. When initially, the code of silence was used to protect the average citizen in the community, to protect the community as a whole from the oppressor, from outside forces that's coming in to harm the community. But now it's the people inside, the house niggas that's inside the community, that's bringing in the drugs, that's doing the killing, committing all this chaos and destruction. They're the ones saying, don't tell on me. Stop snitching. Don't do that. Don't tell that I'm doing this. Bro, you my neighbor. You killing me. You know what I'm saying? You killing kids. You doing this. You selling drugs in my community. You the reason why these houses vacant. You the reason why, you burnt down houses. You stealing cars. You doing all this crime in the community, and you expect the citizens to keep their mouth closed about it. So you pushing this agenda about the code of silence when really you hijack the code of society, the code of silence, so you can hide behind it and continue to oppress your own community. Where they do that, that's what's got to change. That's what's got to stop. Allah says in the Quran, bear witness to the truth even if it be against your own self. Bear witness to the truth even if it be against your own self. People need to understand that this is an honorable thing. It wouldn't be a commandment from Allah if it wasn't an honorable thing. And Allah rewards people for obeying his commandments. Here he says, bear witness to the truth even if it be against your own self. This is an honorable thing that people has made dishonorable. This is the thing that should be respected in our community, highly appreciated and considered beautiful, because it prevents harm to one's neighbors. It prevents harm to one's family and community. For sure. If you speak out against a wrong that somebody done, you stand up for justice and say, yo, that man killed that kid. He was doing a drive-by. Even if it's in your own gang. Even if you're a part of the gang. Even if you was in the car with him when he did the shooting and you fired some shots too. If you step up and say, yo, we did that. He did most of the shooting. I did some shooting too, and you help get these people off the streets, get these people some help. Because sometimes people need a little time out of a situation to reflect upon how much harm they cause to the situation. And you can help that person as a gang member by helping them get that little time away. Giving them some time to reflect and to think about some other things and to mature and to grow and to learn some things about life and spirituality. And that's a good thing. It's an honorable thing to speak up for the truth. And people really need to understand that and need to understand that it's a praiseworthy thing that Allah rewards and that Allah has ordered the people to and that Allah calls the people towards. He calls the people toward bear witness to the truth. Even if you're a drug dealer and you get caught up in a drug conspiracy, the scholars will tell you, check any scholar, he'll tell you, you get caught up in a drug conspiracy. We know selling drugs is haram. It's wrong. In Islam, Islamically, Allah has forbidden this. It's wrong to sell drugs. It's a sin. So you're Muslim, you're out here, you selling drugs with your guys, and y'all get caught up on a drug conspiracy. Alhamdulillah, you sit in that cell and you think about the punishment you're facing. You're going to be taken away from your family. You're going to be taken away from freedom. You're going to be taken away from your children. You're going to be in a box for a few years. And you say, you know what? I don't think I want to spend 20 years in jail for this. And I knew I was wrong. how about I cooperate with the authorities and turn in my guys who were selling drugs with me, turn in the whole plot, give them the whole thing, bring the whole organization down, because the whole organization is haram, is doing wrong, and is prohibited by Allah. And I had a hand in helping this organization succeed up until this point. So whatever they do, I'm going to receive some of the sin for it, because Allah says, he who has a hand in evil shares in his punishment. Whoa, that's big, right? So if you're part of a criminal organization and you guys get caught and you say, I'm going to take the whole weight for everybody, I'm not going to turn these other guys in, I'm just going to admit to what I did and go do my time. That sounds like an honorable thing in the mind of somebody who don't have no knowledge of God and don't have no knowledge of God's commandments. But in all actuality, you still, even though you're in jail, you took your time. If these guys are still running around doing criminal things, every sin they commit is being added to your account, because you had a hand in helping them be successful up this far, and you could have had a hand in stopping it. You could have stopped it. You could have told the police, yo, the feds, yo, this is how they operate. This is what they doing. I want to help you guys get these guys off the streets. I want to put an end to it, because I sincerely repent to Allah for what I've done, and I want to prevent any evil from happening to anybody else. I want to stop these guys from doing any more evil. And I'm praying that these guys turn their lives over to God and choose a new path and don't commit no more harm to themselves or to other people in the community or wherever they go. So you want to put a stop to that, because a part of repentance is stopping the bad behavior. If you just say, I did this, I'm going to take my own time, I ain't going to tell or testify on nobody else that had a hand in these crimes, then you're not stopping the crime. You're not stopping the bad behavior. You're allowing these people to run with that behavior and continue to hurt and harm other people. That's not repentance. Any scholar of Islam will tell you that. And a lot of Muslims, they don't understand that, because they're truer to the code of the streets than they are to the code of Islam. But Allah called you out of that, out of darkness, into light, out of the code of the streets, into the code of Islam. And the code of Islam say, bear witness to the truth, even if it be against yourself. The Prophet ﷺ said, may peace and blessings be upon him, said, help your brother, whether he is the oppressed or he is the oppressor. They said, yo, Prophet, we know how to help our brother when he's oppressed. We know how to fight with him and help get the oppressor off his head. But how do we help him when he's the oppressor? How is that right? He said, you stop him from oppressing people. That's how. So this is the code of Islam, and it's very different from the code of the streets. The code of the streets said, help your gang member whether he right or wrong. No. Islam said you help your brother when he right, and when he wrong, you make him right. You help him get right. You see what I'm saying? You straighten it out. So if you get caught up in a drug conspiracy or a RICO act or something like that, and you Muslim, and you fear Allah, then you need to put an end to it by telling the authorities what you know about this organization and help them crush that organization and get them guys off the streets and reroute their lives and save the community from their harm, from your brother's harm if necessary. That's our code. That's the code of Islam. That's how we have a better community, and that's what we need. And that's the message that need to come across, but you're not going to hear that out the mouths of these rappers. Why? Because they work for the oppressor. You're not going to hear that from these drug dealers. Why? Because they selfish. They want to poison their own people. They sell drugs to their mamas, their fathers, their sisters, and their brothers. They just want money. They worship money until they call away from that, until they turn away from that. And I pray for all my brothers that's in the streets that they turn away from that and that they come to the light of Allah and leave those things that's prohibited and haram, and those mentalities, those house nigga mentalities. Leave it, because there's something better out here for us. From a slave mentality, who would be considered house niggas today? I mean, who would you say? I would say the police. I would say the rappers, some of the wealthier athletes and stars, and people like that. I would kind of say like they don't know it, but to a large degree they resemble the house niggas the most in their behavior and characteristics. But in what way though? You know what I'm saying? In what way? Explain to us in what way. I mean, I'm just saying because a house nigga is someone whom the oppressor uses to help him oppress the field nigga. So a house nigga is somebody from an oppressed class who the oppressor used to further oppress that class that this person actually comes from. So in our community, a lot of the rappers, they don't know it. Again, like I say, masters, same tactic. The masters using the kids. A lot of these rappers, they sign their contracts when they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, 22 years old. They're young, they're impressionable. They don't know what they're signing. They don't know the ramifications of what the music that they're making is doing and how it's affecting people. So, and this is a plus for Master, just like the house nigga who were kids that Master invited inside his home. Their ignorance is a bonus for him. That's the reason why they're there inside the home, the children, and not the adults, because the adults know better, but the children don't know better. And it's the same thing with these rap artists. They're young, and it's a reason why rappers are 18 and not 48, because a 48-year-old know better. They know the power of the tongue, so they're not going to be as loose with their tongue. They're not going to be as reckless with their speech as some of these young people, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, under 30, loose with their tongue, following their desires. You pay them enough money, they'll say anything. You give them enough fame, you give them what they want, they'll say anything. And that's how these rappers are. That's why they resemble the house niggas the most. It's no accident that they're young. They're young for that reason, because of their ignorance. This is why they get them in contrast. They want the young rappers because the young rappers are ignorant enough to further the agenda of the oppressor. He's rapping about don't snitch, but he doing all the snitching in the music. He's rapping about do drugs. He's rapping about go spend $1,000 on a belt. He's rapping about go kill somebody. He's rapping about sexual immorality. He's rapping about total ignorance. And they place him on a pedestal and make him the role model for the other children in his community. And what this does is it sets back the whole community, the whole generation of that community. It destroys them, most of them. Some of them smart enough to make it around it. Some of them won't listen to these rappers. Alhamdulillah for that. May Allah guide more of them to be that way. But the majority of them, they idolize these rappers. They idolize the Lil Durks, the Gucci Manes, the ones who are speaking so much destruction into the atmosphere, into the community. They idolize these people. So the rappers are furthering the agenda of the oppressor to oppress their own kind and ultimately oppress themselves. And by the time they get smart enough or mature enough to realize what they have done, the ink is already dry on the contract that they signed. So they locked in, like Kanye West. His ink was dried on his contract, so when he got smart enough to realize what was going on and he started speaking out about it, cancel culture. They canceled him. You don't hear about Kanye West no more because he's no longer a tool for the oppressor. He refused to let them use him as such. So they voided all his contracts. Not really voided them, but they used him in a way where he can't do anything anymore. because when he was a young man, he signed up for something that he didn't understand what he was signing up for. And this is the thing, and this is why I say the rappers of today most resemble the house niggas, because hip-hop started out as a thing that was positive for oppressed people. It was motivational. It was a way that they communicated good things with each other in a way that, you know, outsiders wouldn't understand what they were saying. They was using slang, they was using rap and beats and everything, you know, to educate people on what's going on, kind of the way the slaves was doing on the plantation. But now, they're using it destructively, to destroy the communities, to totally obliterate the moral fiber of the communities in which they come from. That's what a house nigga is. If you look at it, that's what a house nigga is. Umar makes a good point, but why you say that? These rappers are the main ones talking about stop snitching, snitches get stitches, kill the snitches, this type of thing. But they're the main ones snitching in their music. They telling everything that's going on. All the feds, anybody got to do is listen to their music. They gonna know how dudes scamming, how dudes selling dope, where the stash spots at in the cars, how they hiding the pistols, how they getting away with the crimes that they're doing. They telegraphing everything in the music. But they're the main ones pushing this stop snitching, you know, culture and everything. But they put all the information out there. How to do this crime, how to do that crime, how they did this crime, and they not doing no crimes. Let me correct that. The rappers not doing no crimes. They just putting the information on how the crime's being done out there. You know what I'm saying? They putting that information out there so the real criminals are one step closer to getting caught, because the rappers telling everybody how the real criminals committing the crimes, how they doing it, what they doing it, how they talk, their lingo, everything. But they're the main ones pushing the stop snitching culture. So who the real house niggas out here? Good point. All right, that's our show for today, man. Tap in. See y'all next time. I hope you soaked up something from this. Maybe we can piggyback on this conversation, extend this dialogue some. Leave something in the comments for me. You know, have a good day. See ya.